Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Henchman's Memoirs. This is our Dark Souls of Drakkenheim 5e campaign recap. And this week on the big show, the party stumbled into an encounter I have been planning for them for quite some time, and they came across it on their own, and I couldn't have been more excited. So, the party had stopped off at the Drakkenheim city garrison, where the hooded lanterns are. They checked in with them. Peter got a little romantic with Petra Lang, and I think even handsome Lang took him aside and said, what are your intentions with my sister, and she's been hurt before, so you be good to her, don't break her heart. Is great little scene. But from there they want to go back into the sewers, and they want to see if they can find Elmira the vampire's lair, get in there and stake her and get her essence of shadow that they can take back to the Darklings, and maybe start to get some inside information about where some of these items are located in the city. So off they go, and I think it was Atticus who rolled a 1 this time. So as you know, if you've played the campaign, the way random encounters work, everybody rolls a die, either a d20, a d12, depends on where you are and how dangerous the city is, part of the city is. And if anybody rolls a 1, you get a random encounter. So that's what they did. Somebody rolled a 1, and then they roll percentile dice to see what the encounter was. I did not predetermine this. This was I was ready to run the vampire lair, and they run the Queen's Men, a group of Queen's Men that are out looking, patrolling, right? So I even, and this is an important point that my players seem to have forgotten, they rolled how many Queen's Men thugs they were going to encounter. And they rolled quite a few. I can't recreate the battle entirely on this smaller space, but it was a pretty serious ambush that they rolled, and then they got mad at me when it turned into a ridiculously hard fight. But basically, there was a good number of Queen's Men ambushers around this square waiting for them, because my plan previously had been, when they returned to the cosmological clock tower, the Queen's Men would be there waiting for them, because that's where they got the steward's seal. And the Queen's Men have their own way of finding out where stuff is, which is a big mystery in the campaign right now. But they were going to encounter a bunch of the Queen's Men led by none other than Talon, their own former party member. There was a shadow dagger throwing thief who was part of the group. Actually, Atticus's player started with this character, and then we kind of had him, his quest and what he wanted and all this stuff just didn't really fit with the party. And Atticus's player was like, he wouldn't really stay with the rest of the group. So what if we write him out? I create a new character, and I was like, and I get to bring him back later as a potential enemy. And he's like, well, no, oh yeah, it's already done. So I gave him a pretty cool carbine, which is like a short, kind of a shorter musket kind of thing. And he was going to be the one to encounter them up there in the cosmological clock tower. But now they rolled this encounter. It was a perfect chance for me to bring him back. So the party gets to make their perception checks, and they see these guys around them, and who should step out onto the roof over here but Talon, and basically says, I don't remember the voice. I did my French accent for him, I think. Let's face it, my French accent is very good. Even people who are from Paris tell me all the time, it is impeccable. They can't tell the difference between me and the president of France. And he says, listen, we know you have the seal, and I am willing to let bygones be bygones. If you simply give us the seal, we will let you walk away. And, they're like, seal? What? We don't have it on us, or whatever. They were like trying to bluff him a little bit, which was going to be hard anyway. But then they rolled garbage, and so all these guys are aiming their muskets at him. And I think these guys had regular bows and crossbows. He was the only one who had a black powder weapon. They're all aiming at them, and Peter decides he's gonna get frisky. He's got his monk speedy movement, and he wants to run into this building, bash through this door, and get in this building. These guys are up on the second floor. He wants to get into this building, but they all have readied actions to like shoot anybody who makes a funny move. So they all unload on him. Now this episode could also be considered a follow-up to our review of Flea Mortals, because I wasn't expecting this encounter, but when it came along, I opened Flea Mortals to the humans section, and I decided, oh, these guys are only CR2. The party is what, like 6th level now? Go ahead and have these guys be the regular thugs that are with him, right? So, they've got exploit opening 3 times per day. They can make an attack roll with advantage. Point blank shooting, when they're within 30 feet, they get an extra 2d6 damage, and being within 5 feet doesn't provoke disadvantage on their ranged attack rolls. And they have this ricochet bolt thing. So let's just say from my experience so far running Flea Mortals, the monsters in here punch their weight, or maybe just a little bit above their weight. And then I think I just used Human Scoundrel, I think, as the stat block for Talon. And but I remember he had some abilities from when he was an actual PC, so he could like run up walls and throw magic daggers and everything else. So the fight kicks off, and it's not a good situation for the party. They're exposed, and all of these trick shots are using their exploit opening. They've got 3 a day. They're probably only going to live 3 rounds anyway, right? So they're all attacking with advantage. They're all dealing a D10 plus 4 with their heavy crossbows. And my players are all looking across the table at me like, what kind of, are you done with this campaign? Is that the problem? You decided you wanted to end the campaign in a bloody, mess? So the party eventually, as they usually do, they decide to follow Peter's lead, right? And they end up inside this building. I think Nexel might have been the last one inside. They end up inside this building. They throw a Molotov cocktail. I think somebody had a fire spell, or somebody had some alcohol. They started a fire here, and they're in the building. These guys come downstairs. They're fighting them. Actually, I think there were a couple on the first floor to begin with. So they're in this room fighting these guys. These guys zip line down because I decided, why not, So they zip line down, and they're out here ready to fight. And these guys are coming down the steps trying to fight my party, and I'm going to admit, it was pretty rough. It was pretty brutal. The guys were taking a beating. They were having to use everything they had, because these guys deal a lot of damage. And if your armor class isn't protecting you, you're going to get hurt. So a major turning point in the battle, something I couldn't have planned for. Those crazy things that happen when the players get an idea in their head. Thaddeus decided he was fed up with Talon for some reason. He had had enough Talon nonsense for one day. So he decides to turn into a bear. He can turn into an even bigger bear now, or whatever. He can turn into a real killing machine. And to run out here and try to wreck Talon with his talons, with his claws and his bites. The problem with that was he gets out here, and there's all these guys who have that exploit an opening attack. They're defending their captain, so of course they're going to use it. They're all attacking with advantage. They pepper him full of crossbow bolts. He takes enough damage to go from bear back to gnome, and from conscious gnome to unconscious gnome, like in one round. Like, they just absolutely wrecked him, right? So now the rest of the party does that smack your forehead thing. They're like, great, now what are we going to do? So they're still fighting. These guys are deciding should they zip line down. I think they had taken out a couple of these guys. Maybe they had taken out this guy. And I realized, this guy still had to be there. I realized what I would do in this situation, right? I don't always want to just have my bad guys fight to the death every fight, and it's just every fight is the same. So what I did was, this guy picks Thaddeus up. He holds his knife to Thaddeus's kidney, and he says, "Give us the seal, or your friend dies." Right? He's already at 0 hit points, and if he stabs him through the kidney, he's going to be dead. Right? This guy runs over, pours a healing potion in Talon. Talon gets up and is like, "Oh, the tables have turned." So at first, Nexel actually has the seal. Nexel thought about just throwing out the seal to him. He's like, "Look, it's not worth all this." But there was some table talk among the party, and even Thaddeus' character was like, "Look, I can create a new character. I mean, if this is the scene he dies in, this is the scene he dies in, right?" But eventually, there was all this back and forth and all this talk about what they could do. Atticus steps out, and he, puts his hands up and comes out, and he's I don't know if he was thinking he could somehow shoot the knife out of this guy's hand, or thorn whip it, or whatever it is, whip it out of his hand or something. He was trying to put a kind of a plan together when Nexel's character had an absolute brainstorm. He was like, "Okay, hold on, wait a minute, Mr. Postman." He had a scroll of Dimension Door, and he could, I think, Misty Step as a bonus action. So he's like, "Here's what I do. I Misty Step here. I grab Thaddeus. I read the scroll. We Dimension Door out. I Dimension Door out with him before they can react. And, and our friend is safe, and we can go back to fighting." So, here's the thing, guys. The henchman, your old pal, the henchman, I leave it up to the players to know what their characters can do. To me, I need to know what the monsters can do. I need to know what the bad guys can do. I need to know what the NPCs can do. But I don't read every spell and every ability description that the players have access to in their character classes and wherever else they're getting this stuff. Nexel's players bought so much stuff on D&D Beyond, they have access to every crazy book you've ever heard of. And I don't know all that stuff. It's not my job to know it. They need to know what their characters can do. So when a situation like this comes up and they're like, "Can I do that?" I say, "Well, read the spell description to me. Read the description of the ability to me, and let's talk about it and see what's what." So he could Misty Step out there, no problem. And then he's reading the description of Dimension Door to get away, and it says you can take one willing creature with you. And so I said, "Wait a minute. It says one willing creature. How is Thaddeus willing when he's unconscious?" So a lengthy philosophical and moral discussion ensued as we tried to figure out whether or not an unconscious character should be counted as being willing to, as far as the text goes. And we eventually put it to a vote. I wanted everybody's input because some people were saying, "Well, he's neither willing nor unwilling." I was like, right, if he's neither willing nor unwilling, then he is not willing. Right? The text doesn't say one unresisting creature. It says one willing creature. And so the party was giving me a hard time about all of a sudden becoming a rules lawyer. We went back and forth. I even called my son was there that weekend. I called him downstairs. He's a big D&D fan. He voted that yes, Thaddeus would have been willing the last time he was conscious, so that's what matters. Some other people voted no, but eventually the consensus of the table was that we should count him as willing. And so he was able to teleport away from a friend of mine who was trained as an EMT. Told me later that legally speaking, there is implied consent to help an unconscious person. So at least in the 21st century, I never thought of that, but yeah, I mean, you know, you have to be willing to receive medical treatment. But if I'm unconscious in my car after a wreck, I don't want the EMTs to be like, wait, do you think he's willing for us to help him? So anyway, we finally agreed, after much discussion, to go ahead and let him teleport out. So then the guy who plays Thaddeus has the nerve to start a whole nother debate with me because he wants to teleport to the second floor of this building. He can't just teleport where he can see. It says a place you can see or picture. And he says, well, or visualize, I think was the word. He's like, I can visualize what the second floor of this building would look like. I'm like, no, you can't. You've never been up there. So I did put my foot down on that one. So he ended up teleporting back in here. The building is catching fire. The fight is definitely far from over. And these guys, I think, ziplined down and were on either side of the door. And the party just started really wrecking house with these guys. So they had finished off all of these guys. They half of them were upstairs in this building, half of them were downstairs in this building. Pietor jumps down. Now that he's got a level of rogue, he's trying to get sneak attacks from time to time. These guys were lined up here. After they had taken out most of the Queen's men, these guys decided to make a run for it, right? And I think it might have actually been Thaddeus who had some kind of area of effect spell that got them. And eventually, I think they might have let one of them go with a warning saying, you know, tell the Queen of Thieves never to mess with us again. But they definitely ended up killing Talon, the former PC who also was lined up to be a member of the Sinister Six. They actually fully and finally killed him, and now they've decided they actually need to go back to the garrison. They're not in the shape they're in. They're not going to try to keep going and how to head to the vampire's lair. They went back to the garrison to get another long rest in so that they could head to the vampire's lair next time. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe if you enjoy what we're doing. It encourages us to keep it up. And we'll see you next time on the Henchman's Memoirs.